brief by Dr. Mark Zandi, one of the nation's leading economists. He talked to us about three different issues: the short-term inflation dynamics that we're dealing with. He unpacked those short-term dynamics for us, indicated that all facts and data point to the reality that the inflation that we're experiencing, and we know is impacting everyday Americans across the country, is connected, of course, to the COVID-19 pandemic, to the supply chain issues largely connected to the pandemic, to the shutdowns to some extent that took place as a result of the pandemic, and of course, most recently, the rise of the Delta variant. But all projections suggest that these inflationary concerns are short-term in nature, and we'll continue to try to do everything possible to address those dynamics. He also talked to us about the connection between the Build Back Better agenda and the economic growth that would result when we get the Build Back agenda over the finish line, as we will do. And certainly significant progress has been made in that area over the last few days, and we are all feeling very positive about the coming together that is clearly occurring as we land these planes. And lastly, Dr. Zandi talked to us about the importance of a fully inclusive economy and how a fully inclusive economy will lead to greater economic growth and prosperity for the American people. He's done some work in this area. A central part of the Build Back agenda is going to be to make sure that a significant amount of the resources that we spend, 40% threshold has been the number that has been championed by the Biden administration, is spent in traditionally underserved and under-resourced communities. In African American communities, Latino communities, Indian country, immigrant communities, as well as Appalachia, rural America, and small town America. A fully inclusive economy leads to significant economic growth. You know, our mission, which we have chosen to accept, is to build back better for the people. And that is what we are working to get done, and we will. We will crush the virus. We will create millions of good-paying jobs. We will fix our crumbling infrastructure. We will cut taxes for working families, low-income families, and middle-class families, largely but not exclusively through the enhanced and expanded child tax credit. We will lower costs in child care, in health care, and in education for everyday Americans, and we will confront the climate crisis with the fierce urgency of now, because there is no planet B. Every single one of those issues unites Democrats in the House, in the Senate, and of course, President Biden and Vice President Harris, and together we will build back better for the people. It's now my honor to yield to the distinguished Vice Chair of the House Democratic Caucus, Pete Aguilar.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A lot going on this week, as all of you know. Under the leadership of Chairman Benny Thompson, the January 6th committee last night reported out a contempt recommendation to the full House floor that we will vote on tomorrow. The next step is to hold a vote of the whole House to allow the Speaker to certify the criminal contempt referral to the U.S. Attorney of the District of Columbia. And we fully expect the U.S. Attorney to honor their duty and to bring this matter before a grand jury. Let me be clear that this is not done to be punitive. This is done to uphold the law. And for 4 years, we saw the prior president and his allies act outside of the law, ignore the Constitution, and degrade our democracy. Democrats and Republicans feel that it is the duty of every member of this body to stand by our oath and to uphold the Constitution. I'm proud that my colleagues in the Democratic caucus are prepared to take the appropriate steps to honor our oath, and I hope that our Republican colleagues are prepared to do the same. With that, I'll now yield to Assistant Speaker Katherine Clark.
Good morning. It is such a pleasure to be back in our caucus press conference, and I am so grateful to Chairman Jeffries and Vice Chair Aguilar, not only for the invitation, but moreover for their leadership in this critical time for our country and for our caucus that continues to lead with the American people as our inspiration and our focus to build back better and build back more inclusive. Yesterday, I was proud to go to the White House with Democratic colleagues to discuss with the President and the Vice President and Secretary Yellen how we build back better. And I am excited about the progress that is being made towards the Democrats' shared goal of the President Biden's Build Back Better package. We are making progress and we are recovering. As was emphasized in our caucus today, job growth is up, wages are up, and our unemployment rate is down below 5%, 18 months faster than forecasters predicted earlier this year. But central to our work, our through line in this is putting equity and inclusiveness into our economy. And we have to look no further than the September job reports to see the work we need to do. All of the net job gains in September went to men, while 300,000 more women exited the workforce. The work ahead of us, as the chairman just explained, remains leaving no one behind and building back better, not only because it's the morally right thing to do, it is the economically sound thing to do. The heart of this agenda is a recognition that when families succeed, America succeeds. And we need to build a foundation of support for families so they can work, feed, and care for their own families and live with dignity. This is what the Build Back Better agenda brings to life. And let's look at some of the facts around childcare. A recent study shows that countries contribute an average of $14,000 per year for a toddler's care. That's compared to $500 here in the US. We are spending 28 times less than our global partners and competitors. And across this country, only 57% of young children have parents who report they have good childcare options where they live. And only about half of 3 and 4-year-olds in the United States are enrolled in early education, compared to 90% of children in countries like France, the UK, Korea, and others. If American women ages 25 to 54 participated in the labor force at the same rate that they do in Canada and Germany, that would translate into over $500 billion of additional economic activity every single year. And the Build Back Better agenda is helping bridge that gap. It will increase equitable economic growth as it establishes subsidized childcare to cut costs in half for most American families looking at sizable childcare bills. It will provide free universal preschool for 3 and 4-year-olds, create a national paid family leave program, extend the child tax credit that is already providing families with that money in their pockets to meet basic needs. And it will further reduce healthcare costs by expanding Medicaid. This agenda was created by listening to American families, our constituents, and the American people. It is their agenda. And with the leadership of this caucus, we are working every day to bring this transformative package to life. And we are excited about the momentum and the progress we're seeing this week. Thank you so much, and I yield back to our distinguished chair.
Thank you, Catherine, and it's great to have you back. Questions?
So is there enough trust that you feel has been built up on the social spending package that if there's a framework by the end of the week, there could be a move to vote on the bipartisan bill? And the second question is if you're still on an end-of-the-month timeline, especially given that the White House yesterday said they're not.
This is President Joe Biden's agenda. The White House has indicated that they're not on a timeline. We're not on a timeline. We're just working to arrive at the consensus that is clearly moving in an incredibly positive direction to accomplish all of the policy objectives that are necessary to deliver real relief to everyday Americans, not just in this context of the pandemic moment, but as part of the effort to create a more inclusive society where that basic American contract, when you work hard and play by the rules, you should be able to provide a comfortable living for yourself and for your family and retire with grace and dignity. That's what's driving the agenda that is in front of us. And as the administration has consistently said, there is no hard timeline. We're just working to get this done, and we will.
And on the reconciliation piece, if there's a framework, if you feel that there's enough trust to move forward with the bill?
That relates to a timeline question that the White House, has said at the end of the day. Both of these bills are moving forward. They're moving forward in a positive direction. They're on a parallel track, and we look forward to getting them over the finish line.
Mr. Chairman, one of your predecessors, Rahm Emanuel, has stood at this lectern when he was the chair of this caucus. He's before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee today for his confirmation hearing. Some members of your caucus, though, have expressed concern about him being confirmed. What do you make of some of these positions that some of these members have taken about his tenure as mayor of Chicago in particular, to how he dealt with the police force there?
Yeah, I issued a statement today supporting the nominations that will be before the Senate, including Mayor Emanuel's nomination, as well as the nominations for the ambassador to Singapore and the ambassador to China. My statement speaks for itself.
But aren't there some divides there? Obviously, if you have somebody who, was President Obama's chief of staff, was chair of this caucus, and you have Democrats lobbying other Democratic senators to vote against his confirmation, that's significant.
So I represent a district where no one is talking to me about the nomination to the ambassador of Japan. No one, not a single person. So I think we're all united. We're all united in dealing with the pain and the suffering that the American people have experienced as a result of this pandemic. And we've got an agenda that's in front of us that's broadly popular with the American people. And we're going to get it over the finish line. I assume nobody else wants to address that question. Excellent, sir. Thanks. We'll go to the back there.
You guys talked about the number of women who are missing from the workforce. Do you think that a 1-year extension of the child tax credit and 4 weeks of paid family leave is enough to make a dent in those numbers?
Yeah.
The child tax credit remains a priority for the president and is a priority for this caucus. And let me tell you how powerful it's been. Just this weekend, I met a single dad in Massachusetts who is raising his toddler daughter by himself after his wife had a stroke in childbirth. And he couldn't believe that he was actually receiving this assistance that isn't going to do anything but make life that much easier for him, allow him to put food on the table, to get clothes for his daughter, just make that quality of life a little easier as he struggles to raise his daughter. And this is the story that we are seeing. We are seeing child poverty rates dropping. So we are going to do everything we can to keep our eye on the American people and provide this major tax cut for American families. And all the data has shown us, and now in just the last few months, we know that this funding goes to meeting those basic necessities. The cost of diaper, it helps with the cost of housing, the cost of childcare. All these other policy issues are coming together. So this is a priority program that we are going to continue to fight for as as robust funding for as long a term as we can.
Pete? Heather?
Last we heard last night, salt was one of the things that didn't seem like it was going to stay in the current negotiations. I know New York, New Jersey lawmakers have a lot of opinions about that. What is your understanding of the current talks around that, and how much of that, if lifting the caps was not in there, would that be a red line for your delegation and your New Jersey colleagues?
Well, I'll let everybody in New York and New Jersey speak for themselves, but I think the strong consensus amongst the overwhelming majority of the members of the New York and New Jersey delegation is that some relief in terms of SALT should be part of this legislation, because what the GOP did in 2017 as a result of the GOP tax scam was ridiculous, outrageous, and it was one of the largest abuses of the tax code in the history of the Republic, to target states like New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Illinois, and California, which collectively send tens of billions of dollars more to the federal government each and every year than we get back in return. We are donor states, and many of those Republicans who were leaders of the effort to attack and eviscerate SALT are taker states. They regularly take more from the federal government every year than they get back or send back to this country in return. And so I think those of us who support restoration of the state and local tax deduction and providing property tax relief to middle-class families and working class families have the high ground here, and I think we'll continue to make our case.
Is it a red line for you, though, if it's not in there?
There's no red lines one way or the other. We have to look at the totality of the package before any decisions are made in terms of, but I expect to support a final agreement, because I know a final agreement is going to be transformative for the American people. Let's go back to this side.
Thank you, Chairman Jeffries.
Pete, hold on, Pete, do you want to comment on SALT? Okay.
The IRS
No, it's from California.
They're gonna
Yeah,
talk
it's from-
about the Dodgers if you.
Okay, yeah.
Yesterday, the IRS reporting requirement went from $600 to $10,000. Republicans are still saying that's gonna get bring in millions of Americans under IRS watch. Is that figure still too low, especially if you talk about the program going after millionaires and billionaires that could wrap up small business owners? Any concerns, or anybody with 10,000, any concerns about how that could play out with what Republicans are saying?
Well, I haven't really followed the latest in terms of what Republicans have or have not said about whatever issue we may be trying to deal with. They've been unproductive parts of this dialogue, obstructionists, showing no interest in trying to move the ball forward and arrive at common ground. President Biden has consistently said that taxes will not go up for a single American who makes $400,000 or less. It's a promise that he's made. It's a promise that I believe he will keep. Pete?
Yeah, I'll just say briefly, what we've learned pretty clearly is that, the other side of the aisle, our Republican colleagues, are going to make up or say whatever they need to do to suit their political purposes. I will say, as someone who worked in the credit union industry for a number of years in the past, that threshold seems about right. I think this is the administration being responsive to what they've heard both from industry as well as from members. At $10,000 is a threshold that you also have to fill out a suspicious activities report from a compliance perspective. So this is a number that the industry is aware of. So I don't think that that's anything that the American public are going to get upset by. And so this is just politics of the other side of the aisle. But that's what we expect. Go Dodgers.
I warned you.
So I guess to follow up on the question earlier about SALT, do you think that Speaker Pelosi and Leader Schumer are under a lot of this issue because their home states are so affected, but also there are competing opinions on this in the caucus, within the caucus?
Well, I'm not going to comment about Speaker Pelosi and Leader Schumer in terms of their perspective on any given issue, because they're perfectly capable of doing that themselves, and they're providing tremendous leadership in getting these bills over the finish line. I will say that on the SALT issue, we've heard from some of the more progressive unions in the country. Randy Weingarten, progressive leader and organized labor leader of the American Federation for Teachers, strongly supportive of restoration of the state and local tax deduction, because she understands that it provides for the local and state government ability to provide for public investment, public education, public housing, public transportation, the provision of the public good, including public safety. Lee Saunders, who leads the largest organization of public employees throughout the country, a very progressive union, ASME, strongly supportive of restoration of the state and local tax deduction. These are our allies, and these are our progressive allies.
New York question, if I can. I'm wondering if you think that Jay Jacobs should resign in light of his comments about the KKK and India Volt.
Yeah, I haven't followed those comments, and so I'd have to take a look at what he said before commenting on it. Thanks.
Thanks. Given that the Clean Electricity Performance Program is likely to be off the table in negotiations right now on the reconciliation package, what gives Democrats so much confidence that they will still be able to deliver on the emissions reduction targets that the president has talked about and wants to highlight in Glasgow in a couple of weeks?
Well, let me yield to Katherine, because I know Katherine was at the White House, and I think there's a coming together around the need to deal with the climate crisis with the fierce urgency of now. I know that's something that President Biden has brought up and did address yesterday. I do believe we'll be able to come together on this issue. That was the mood of the caucus earlier today, but let me yield to our Assistant Speaker.
I can tell you that President Biden was resolute, that he is committed to reducing our emissions by 50% by 2030, and that whatever we are able to do, and there will be a sizable investment in climate, because as the chairman said, this is an urgent issue. There is no planet B. We have to make sure that we are moving forward and addressing climate change. And so the president is committed. He is sticking by that commitment. And what we are going to do is make sure that we are making these investments in our future, and that we are doing it in a way in these bills that also creates great jobs. And so this is all part of meeting this moment of economic, racial, and climate justice. The president is committed, and we are with him.
I know that you won't get into specifics, but did he share with you in private conversations his ideas or the ideas on the table for how you meet that goal without the CEPP?
We talked about a variety of possibilities. It is still a framework, and when we have a final agreement, we'll be happy to share.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Last question. Back.
I know one of the big priorities for the caucus has been shoring up the ACA. It sounds like we're at a point in the negotiations where the premium tax credits are not going to be made permanent and will only be extended for some number of years, TBD. Is that an acceptable trade-off? And it sounds like there's also a potential to marry the number of years on the ACA subsidies with the Medicare expansion. Do you think that the timing of those should be the same, so that whatever healthcare solutions you guys look at in the future, you can revisit them together?
Well, nothing is agreed upon until everything is agreed upon, but in the healthcare space, there is a strong commitment that was reiterated by our leadership today to ensure that we do three things: that we strengthen the Affordable Care Act, that we are expanding Medicare benefits, and that we expand access to Medicaid. And we believe that in whatever form it takes, we're going to lean in all three areas, and that it will result in a substantial and dramatic increase in the access to high quality, affordable health care for everyday Americans and for our seniors, and for our women and for our children all across America. And that will be a tremendous step forward. And it's something I think that the American people should be excited about because it's been a long time in coming. Thank you, everyone.